What's happening, guys? It is October 29th. Damn it. I cannot believe we're blasting by life so freaking quick. And I don't know what to say. Every time I turn around, I would drop my daughter off to school today. We're talking about what's happened in the last 4 years. She was just 9 or 10 years old hunting with me not that long ago. We're supposed to be hunting right now, but I had to, like I said in the last episode, throw the tags in, and she's now 15 and things have changed a ton. But so Friday the 29th, I brought on another, somebody brought him back out of the archives, Dr. John Abernathy. How you doing, brother?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for jumping. Well, it's not early in your world, but thanks for jumping on and being willing to throw more data out to the database out here. One, a longtime client, a very good friend, another person that has put trust in me to come, actually invited me to come speak to your students out there at Kennesaw State, which was a really cool experience. Really cool to chat with them about something that is not normally discussed, I think, in the education world, correct?
That's absolutely right. I was just thinking about that. We need to regenerate that. The students got a lot of benefit out of that. So, as we open up a bit more, we need to get you back out here.
I would love to. That was just fun. And now that I have a little bit better, the lay of the land out there, I feel, because sometimes you go into a place I had never been to that area. Once you're there, it's kind of interesting how you feel about something when you've been there once and like, okay, now I'm okay. I feel more comfortable. The first time even me, I tiptoe a little bit because I have a way of rubbing people the wrong way sometimes, especially the first time.
Nah. I was amazed by, and even from my perspective, this was something kind of out there, from traditional accounting, and the students were so receptive. And I remember like you were kind of flocked with students wanting to talk to you after. And I think that just kind of showed the interest that they had. So very important missing piece of financial education.
Well, and I appreciate the fact you're going it from the practical approach, right? And we know that there's an academic approach to things and there's a practical approach to things. Now, not taking anything away from academics, but it's ultimately, it is an education on the best information that the individual has at the time they're giving it. And sometimes it's not been practically applied. And that's the one thing I've always appreciated about you is you're one of the few people I've talked to in that particular world that has such a practical approach to things. I think there's just huge benefit to those who you're sharing it with. You can give them the accounting information that they need to know from an academic perspective, but then, hey, here's how you real world apply it. Changes it drastically for the student. Because me as a student, like what I said to you, and I think I had to hide from your students. I'm like, I cheated my ass off to get that C in high school. That was it. I was great at picking locks and sneaking around, and man, I got all kinds of Mission Impossible when it come to my education because I didn't see the practical application of it, and still don't from what I was taught. But now, when you start seeing it when you start getting into the investing world and the real world of finance. I can sit here and spout off for a half hour about how you approach things, and I have a great respect for your direction that you take with your students.
I appreciate that. That's a very high compliment. I guess I should have probably listened a little more closely to what the students were asking you, given that you did kind of mention stealing exam keys. So next time you come up, make sure they're not getting tips.
Well, no, I mean we got to be honest here. I didn't steal shit. Well, the exams, yes, but I didn't steal the keys. I learned how to pick the locks, and I learned the codes by using dirt to see where the buttons were being pushed on the what do you want to call it, the copy machine in the office. And since I was an aide at the office the next day, I was able to sneak those things out, get those copies done, and get those back into the cabinet before anybody noticed it. So I didn't even steal; I borrowed.
Right. I understand. I understand the semantics behind that.
I borrowed and I made prints of it, right? One of one, if
right.
you will. So, and I think that's probably one of those type of things. People who are going through an educational period and people are learning in an environment like that, it can probably be. I'm just guessing, trying to put myself in their shoes and their seat, watching a guy like me stand up there and talk. It's got to be a kind of a perplexing thing. Is okay, how does a guy go from that type of a thought process in high school and having to sneak around to accomplish something, and then now is standing in front of a class of accounting students alongside a person who has his PhD in such to discuss finance, so that's got to be a perplexing thing. And what it really boils down to, in my opinion, this is just, Aaron Chapman's opinion, is Scott offered just a second. It really just boils down to relationships, the experience one goes through and what person has to, I guess, mold to in the world. And I think if I knew too much about it, I may have, in my mind, if I knew too much about it from an academic perspective, I may not be as successful as I am today because of how I think, not how somebody else might think. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but.
No, and it makes complete sense. And you and I have had the conversations. I'm one of the few. I'm academics is what I do, and I'm the first person to say that a college education is not for everybody. And there are people that have aspirations and students of being a Big Five accountant or working for the Big Four accounting firms or the regional firms. And yes, you need an education to do that. There's a lot of people who have different aspirations in life, really don't know. And those people, a college education is not going to be particularly beneficial to them. So I think they saw that in you in a kind of a different realm. So I think that was beneficial.
Yeah, and like you said, there's going to be people in there, they need the education. You can't get the certification to do the job without the education. It's an absolute necessity, right?
Yeah.
Me, I never planned to become an accountant. I never planned to do this stuff. My thing was just, I was able to learn how I did my job by understanding the marketplace and the people that I'm serving to be able to accomplish the job, and then focusing. What really made my job easier is when I focused in on the real estate investor and focusing on the needs of the individual, and then understanding that is a group of individuals out there and there's a marketplace that I can tap into. In fact, one of the questions that come up recently, and I was wanting to talk about this may not apply, and I think it kind of does, with respect to what people's needs are. I've had a lot of people recently ask me, because we're in an environment with really, really low inventory, right? And that's one of the big things we're in the middle of that we're fighting through, is the inventory is just hard to get. And if you don't have cash to come to the table, you're going to miss out on an opportunity. One of the things that many folks have run into is like, I'm trying to buy these houses. I'm trying to actually buy from this builder or from this developer or from this seller. And they're saying, no, you got to use our lender. And it's like, well, they're incentivizing me. And it's like, Aaron, we've worked you a long time, but they're going to pay X amount in cost to use their lender. What do you think? I'm like, anybody can do that. I mean, they can ask you to do whatever they want you to do. They can request and they can incentivize. There's nothing illegal about that, but you still have your choice. You still have the choice. You need to make the choice. You need to weigh out the options, decide, okay, with what their incentive is that better than what I'm getting with Aaron, or is it not? Is our team able to take care of you in a way that you feel comfortable, or is that other person, there's one where it looked like, when you add the incentives in, it's not an incentive. Actually, it still costs more over time when we look at the details of it. Take the time to look at and understand for yourself and make decisions for yourself. But if they're saying you have to do this and they're forcing you to do something, that's when you probably want to take a look at it. There's outfits like the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, known as the CFPB, in existence right now for things like that. When consumers are being forced into something, saying you can't do this unless you do what we say, that can't happen. So if you feel like you're in that type of realm, if you feel at all that you're being pushed to use us, to unfairly, call me. Say, Aaron, I don't feel like I'm being represented well here. I'm being forced to use you. Don't ever feel that way. We don't want you to feel that way. If we are not earning your business, then that's not right. If somebody's forcing you to do something, that's highly illegal, right? So you have people out there you can call, but definitely, reach out to us, talk to us about that. We want you to feel comfortable with who you're dealing with all the time. So enough of that particular thing. Let's get into some stuff.
Let me ask you a question on that, Aaron. So are these builders, because demand is just as crazy as it is right now, they just they feel like they can call the shots? Is that kind of what's going on?
Well, I mean, I think that anybody really can. When you've got, when there's a scarcity of product, right? And there's a high demand for something, they want to have a certain amount of quality control in the situation, right? And let's think about this. You're a builder that you're building you're trying to get all these houses built. And in attempting to get all those houses built, you got supply chain issues, you got work issues, you got labor issues, you got all this stuff you're dealing with. That's a lot to manage, right? And then just trying to get a certificate of occupancy out of the local authority, that's an exercise in frustration.
Right.
Do you need another exercise in frustration with a lender that doesn't know what the hell they're doing, that's going to cause problems and then delay a deal at the end, and then all of a sudden this person doesn't so-called qualify because they didn't do their job up front? That sucks. So they're trying to control all that they can when there's a lot of uncontrollables. That's why my team and I, we put so many things in place, actually a ton of hoops up front. I've got underwriters, people with underwriting backgrounds for 30 plus years, looking at the file up front to ensure we're not issuing a pre-qual letter unnecessarily. We literally, it cost me like $250 just to issue that first pre-qual letter because all the labor we put into the file up front to ensure we don't have a deal going sideways at the end, unless there's something out of our control, right? The person loses their job, quits and decides they're become a self-employed person. There could be things that changes it significantly, but outside of that, we try and avoid that stuff altogether. So I can see the point in why they're trying to control it and trying to ensure that they, after all the hell they went through to get that house built, that they don't have something else fall apart on it to where now they have to remarket it. But here's the thing though, remarketing it in today's environment is not hard. They're not losing out to say, guess what's back on the market? They're gonna have a line a mile long of people wanting to buy that house. So
sure,
one side I can see it, the other side I'm like, come on guys, but you also want to work with people you trust. I get that, I 100% embrace that. But I also want to let all the people know out there who are watching, you don't have to be forced into anything. There's nothing that you have to do. You're the consumer. You should have the choice. You get to decide who you work with, but also be discerning. Don't just pick some jackwagon off the freaking street to try and do your loan because you think it might be cheaper. No, work with professionals. And when somebody's forcing you to work with somebody who might be somebody who's unprofessional, you can scream about that. You can stand up and tell, hey, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, I don't know that I'm being protected over here. These people are forcing me to something I don't like. Maybe you want to go look at them. Maybe you want to go talk to them for me. You know, see what they're doing, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Makes sense.
You brought up something earlier. I know that, and one of the things that we talk about all the time has to do with inflation. You brought up something that I'd never heard that term before, and I thought I've heard it all when it comes to inflation.
Yeah, so I was asking you if you've heard this new term called skimpflation.
Now spell that. Skimp as in S-K-I-M-P?
Yep, skimpflation, exactly what it sounds like, right? Like
never heard of it.
So a little background, you know, there's like Representative Mike Lee, for example, he's been saying for some time, kind of the opposite of what we've been saying. He's been saying that these government estimates of inflation are actually too high.
Really?
The reason is because consumers are getting more bang for their buck these days. So we're not taking into account, say, for example, instead of having to own an entire set of encyclopedias, you now have Google at your disposal. So, okay. So so it's a little bit overstated, because you and I have talked about, you know, the cost of technology is one of the big omitted factors from the CPI calculation. But skimpflation is actually really interesting. And this is particularly relevant with COVID, but I think we can all see this happening in our everyday life, right? We're getting a whole lot less bang for our buck, right? So the example was Disney World. So Disney World has not reopened their trams, and you know it's all kind of as a result of COVID, you know, and everybody's kind of blaming COVID. So if you go to Disney World, you have to walk from the parking lot to the park, and you know the price is the same, everything's the same. You're just not getting the same quality that you used to get, and so a lot of people are kind of falling on, the COVID to get less. You know, like restaurants. You know, you used to get, or hotels, sorry, and you know this, you travel quite a bit. You used to get a nice hot buffet breakfast.
Oh yeah.
Not anymore, right? Like you might get a little, paper wrapped muffin or something in the morning. So you're paying
if that, and they used to have like an open lounge in it. Now they closed it off, and all you see is empty space that you can't do anything with. Yeah,
and you're saying, and prices haven't come down. They're not backing that out. So skimpflation is kind of this notion that companies are now starting to skimp because they can, and they can kind of throw it under the COVID umbrella. You know, hey, you know, we can't provide a hot breakfast with your hotel stay. but prices haven't come down. So you're paying the same price or more, as we're clearly seeing, for less service.
Yeah, and that is definitely something we see, a more for less situation. And I tend to agree on the technology. Yeah, we have more technology than what we used to have. You and I, to get knowledge, we have to go find a book that would have it, right? Go to the library and go look around, all that kind of stuff. So you save time, but we also have to remember that kind of stuff does not sustain life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the main things that sustain life, what a person needs to sustain their life, you need food, water, shelter, and air. That's it. That's what you need to be able to sustain life. The only state I believe that has successfully taxed air is California. So the rest of the world, the rest of the world doesn't feel what they feel over there in California. But those other things, food, water, and shelter, if we look at that, regardless of what this individual was indicating, I can't remember the name you just said about inflation being too high, or at least estimated too high because of the things that are disposable to us. You look at those three things, food, water, and shelter, inflation is through the freaking roof, correct?
Right.
So I agree and completely disagree with that individual all at the same time.
Yeah, no, and I absolutely, I completely agree with you. And we've kind of been banging that drum for a long time. What's interesting is the notion of skimpflation would completely dismantle his argument. So even if it were true, so maybe in the height of technological revolution, if you will, we were gaining these efficiencies. Well, we're beginning to see some backslide here. And so what happens when we're getting less for it, then that argument really falls apart.
Oh, 100% falls apart. In fact, it doesn't just fall apart. It gets, more than falls apart. It just disappears completely. I never thought about the skimpflation thing, and you would think that I would have, because it goes under like you said, the guise of COVID. We're able to push things under a different rug because there's a reason for it. Well, and rightfully so. Think about what's going on as far as the cost to provide that for, let's say, the hotel industry. And you got the whole, they want, if they continue to do what they used to do, provide that hot breakfast, right? Open the bar up, all these things, and try and maintain the same cost or get close to what the cost was before, where would that put them at? They would be in a further negative position because the cost of goods have gone so much higher. We got the supply chain issues, their ability to get that. In fact, I was sitting lunch yesterday with one of the guys who's on this with me a lot. He handles a lot of the rate stuff on my team. His name's Scotty Bear. And and we're over at a restaurant of a good friend of ours. His name's Tony Hamadi, owns a place called Schmooze here in Scottsdale. If you're ever in Scottsdale, you got to go have breakfast or lunch at Schmooze. It's one of the coolest places in Old Town Scottsdale. Owner, he used to be the personal chef for King Hussein of Jordan way back, right? Awesome guy. But as we're sitting there talking about the cost of things and how people look at the service industry today, especially the restaurant industry, just the smallest of things have gone up significant. Like just, let's say a case of chicken, right? They said it used to be like $30. Now it's like $90, three times just in the last year. So when you're talking about just like a pizza box, Scotty has a pizza joint he owns that he does kind of side stuff with. Says the boxes have gone up double. So when somebody comes into his pizza place and just buys a slice and eats a half a pizza and asks for a box, his cost just went through the roof significantly because they asked for a box. So he goes, I'm half tempted to tell my staff, if you give them a box, I'm gonna cut your hands off. Jokingly, you're not going out there chopping people's hands off, folks. Let's look at this from reality. But think about that, right? The skimpflation idea, I believe, is a necessity for them to stay open. If they didn't use that, they would not be able to maintain their business, and then our costs would go up even significantly higher. So we are going to have an increase in costs. We're going to have a decrease in service and amenities. And it's a necessity, because if we're even going to have the option to all to even stay at a hotel, with some reasonable rate, they're going to have to cut down on something.
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right. One of the most efficiently run businesses in the world that I've observed is Chick-fil-A. And we scratch our head when we travel that many Chick-fil-A's have not opened their dining rooms. And, you think about the cost savings in not having a dining room open, because they can, they run the drive-through like the invasion of Normandy, right? I mean, they have it set and it's down to a system. So nobody's complaining, and they're running through, but you're exactly right. Margins are maintained as a result of that.
Yeah, so you gotta adjust it somewhere. So they lose the service that comes from having a dining room, but now Chick-fil-A doesn't need the staff. They don't need to clean the dining room. They don't have to maintain the dining room. On top of that, you think about what they have to do every time they have a price increase. You have an increase in what your expenses are, and you have to adjust your prices. Think about the expense they have to go through all that signage and change all those prices.
Oh,
yeah. Now
right.
They have to factor that into the cost increase. I mean, there's so many things that we don't take into account when we as the consumer look at things. Like, I do still get calls. A lot of people say, well, what's your fees, right? When we start talking fees, and they're like, wanting me to justify. It's like, I haven't raised my fees since 2015. These are the exact same fees that I had on the books since 2015, yet my costs have gone up exponentially. Right. And the margins that we get in our world today are cut down significantly. I'm trying to give every single one of my clients the best rate I can possibly get, still stay profitable, but at the same time, not gouge anybody and still keep my costs low. But then they need the service. They need to have the people on my team that do all those steps to ensure that our service is correct. So it is a juggle and a half. And then you got an environment like today where I have tons of clients, but they can't find inventory. You got that too. And then you get them pushed to other lenders, and you got that we got to fight through. So it is a battle, and the best we can do is offer the best information with the best service possible and the best cost we can offer and the best rates, and pray for the best, because I don't know what else we can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got over 20 minutes out of this thing. I appreciate you taking the time to come on. We want to spend some time, go deeper into it. Guys, John is also the guy who helped me with the app. The app is live. So you got to go to your Play Store, go to the QJO investment tool, as in the quit jerking off investment tool. That's live on both on Apple and on Google. Google Play. So you need to, subscribe, go in there, put in your information. I'll bring John on next week and we'll go through that together. We'll go through the app. I got to figure out how to put it on the screen here, but we can go through that app together, because we need you guys to have access to the tools and the calculators to help you be successful. We explain why we built it and how we built it. That's coming up soon. Thanks for tuning in. John, thanks for jumping on here. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We'll see you guys all on Tuesday.